Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to We Rise Purified Power, Day 1. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and light a candle if you'd like to. There will be a brief opportunity for candle gazing. If you don't have a candle, or if you prefer not to light a candle, if you have anything in your immediate environment that lends a sense of auspiciousness to your mind, then you can bring your focus there, or you can immediately close the eyes and start moving your awareness inward. So whichever you prefer, take a moment. And use this moment to center and steady yourself, aligning body, breath, and mind for a smoother shift of awareness from the external world to the internal. And in whatever way resonates with you, invoke a sense of reverence, a sense that we are here to engage with the sacred. You can set your candle or auspicious object to the side. Close the eyes. And with our mantra recitation, our invocation, we'll start with Om 3 times and then move into the Gayatri Mantra, Mahamrityunjaya Mantra, and Vishvadeva 3 times each. Om Bhurбhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurбhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurбhuva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om. Triambakam yajamahe sugandim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityurmukshiyamamretat. Om Triambakam yajamahe sugandim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanam mrityurmukshiyamamretat. Om Triambakam yajamahe sugandim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityur mukshiyamamretat. Om Anubadraha Kritavayantu Vishvato Taptaso Aparitasa Utpidaha Devano Yata Sadamit Vrede Asanna Prayavo Rakshitaro Dive Dive. Om Anubadraha Kritavayantu Vishvato Taptaso Aparitasa Utpidaha Devano Yata Sadamit Vrede Asanna Prayavo Rakshitaro Dive Dive. Om Anubadraha Kritavoyantu Vishvato Taptaso Aparitasa Utpitaha Devano Yata Sadamit Vrede Asanna Prayavo Rakshitaro Dive Dive. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Take a moment to connect to your personal reason for being here. And we'll recite together our collective Sankalpa. I resolve to meditate. May this meditation practice infuse my mind with clarity and stability, and my heart with purity, love, and compassion. May the forces of creation, the sages of the tradition, and the enlightened masters who always seek out those stranded on the path witness my resolution and shower their blessings for a successful meditation. And before lying down in Shavasana, take a moment to consider how your mind defines success in life. What is success? What does it look like? How is it marked? How does it feel? And what are your currently unfulfilled desires around success? What are your currently unfulfilled desires around success. And finally, what thoughts and feelings are associated with that current lack of fulfillment? Be as honest with yourself as you can possibly be. What thoughts and feelings are associated with that current lack of fulfillment? Inviting these questions to continue to linger in your conscious mind. Transition to Shavasana. Make yourself as comfortable as you can. If you are working with a breath pillow, give yourself a minute or so in Shavasana, just breathing as naturally as possible before applying the weight to your belly. Once you find yourself in Shavasana, wiggle, fidget, adjust as much as needed. And then maybe enjoy 3 or 4 full-bodied breaths. Deep, deep inhale and soft but thorough exhale 3 or 4 times. And after those 3 to 4 full-bodied breaths, settle into something a little bit more natural and a little bit more effortless. Invite a sense of stillness and an experience of softness into the body and into the mind. With the simple acknowledgement that impurities often lie held in the places where we hold tension. Let's very simply engage in a systematic relaxation to release that tension as much as your body and mind are prepared to, one breath at a time. Beginning at the very top of the head, we'll enjoy a few breaths here, shifting awareness to this specific space. And with each inhale, inviting an increased sense of spaciousness. And with each exhale, a release of tension, of holding, and possibly of impurity whatever that means. And draw awareness now to the sides of the head. And again, a breath or two here. Inviting spaciousness and allowing for release. Across the forehead and eyebrows. In and around the eyes. Through the cheekbones and the temples. Outer and inner ears. Back to the bridge of the nose and nostrils. The jaw. Lips. Inside of the mouth and the tongue. Neck and throat. Collarbones and shoulders. Upper arms. Elbows. Lower arms and wrists. Palms. Fingers and fingertips. Palms. Wrists and lower arms. Elbows and upper arms. The chest. Heart space. sternum, the space of the belly, navel center specifically, pelvis, pelvic center specifically, perineum, hips, upper legs and knees, lower legs and ankles, feet, toes and the tips of the toes, feet, heels and the backs of the heels, the Achilles tendon, calves and the backs of the knees, hamstrings and buttocks, sacrum and hip flexors, lower back, middle back, upper back, backs of the shoulders, back of the neck and head, top of the head. A few more breaths here. Effortlessly inviting spaciousness and allowing for release. And as though sweeping away any of this impurity that may have been released, enjoy another inhale with awareness at the top of the head. And with exhale, invite awareness to sweep down through the space of the body, down and out through the soles of the feet. And then, like a breath of fresh air, inhale, sweep awareness back up through the soles of the feet, up the legs, up through the torso, to the top of the head. Exhale sweeps down through the space of the body, down and out through the soles of the feet. And then fresh and pure, inhale sweeps back up through the soles of the feet, returning to the top of the head. 1 to 3 more breaths in this way, whatever feels necessary and appropriate. And then gently bring awareness back to the space of the belly. Once again, sensing a quietude, a soft stillness in and around the space of the entire body, with just the most gentle and effortless movement in the belly. If you're working with a breath pillow, just a few more breaths with that weight, and then set the pillow or the sandbag aside and experience the freedom of the breath, the spaciousness in and around the body. Maintaining this soft awareness for just a minute more. Curious about what is present, yet entirely free of judgment and expectation. Two or three more breaths, and then in whatever way feels the best to you, roll to a side, enjoy a few more breaths in a fetal position, and then rise to claim your steady and comfortable seat, taking your time. And I'll say that again in case you've drifted. In whatever way feels best, gradually bend the knees, roll to a side. Enjoy a few breaths in a fetal position. And then rise and claim your steady, comfortable seat. In your asana, your steady, comfortable seat, prioritize alignment in the spine. There is the most subtle effort applied to maintain spinal alignment. The pelvis rooted, connecting to the earth, and the crown of the head as though it is spiraling upward, reaching toward and receiving from the ethereal. And every level of existence lies between those 2 points. Create space for all of that existence. Maintaining that thread of effortless self-effort oriented toward sustaining spinal alignment. Bring awareness back into the belly and release all unnecessary tension or holding. Reconnect to diaphragmatic breathing. Surrendering control of the breath to the innate wisdom of the body. Draw awareness now to the inside of the nostrils. Heighten sensitivity within this space and feel into the presence of the breath. So simple and yet so sublime. The breath remains diaphragmatic, and we draw awareness upward and inward now to Agya Chakra, the center point of the space which the head occupies. Backward of the eyes, inward of the ears, roughly the midbrain. And as awareness is drawn to this point, perhaps there is a growing sense of presence, maybe a concentration, a pulsation, an illumination, and also possibly none of these things. Hold awareness here delicately. Free of strain. Now we'll move into a slow, smooth, steady experience of Samikarana. With inhale, awareness lifts upward to the crown of the head. And with exhale, descends through the midline of the space of the body, slowly, smoothly, eventually reaching for the perineum. And ideally without any pause in the breath, inhale and once again ascend. Drawing upward through the midline of the space of the body, returning to the crown of the head. Without pause, exhale, and again descend. At the perineum, without pause, inhale, ascend. Continue with these oscillations. Again, a seemingly simple technique, and yet capable of a significant balancing, harmonizing, equalizing, and purifying power. Heighten sensitivity and attune to the subtleties. All the way from perineum to crown, through each sacred space between. All of the various layers of being, levels of existence. The next inhale once again ascends to the crown. Exhale will descend through Agya Chakra and then down and out through both nostrils to the 0 point, the space where the breath concludes and then effortlessly begins again, inhaling from that 0 point up through the nostrils to Agya Chakra. Enjoy a few more oscillations like this, slipping into this pranic pathway between Agya Chakra and the 0 point, which is also the outermost reach of your personal universe, your pranic field. Preparing for a variation of Nadi Shodhana. Create Vishnu Mudra with the dominant hand. Inhale once again through both nostrils evenly. Then exhale through the left. Inhale left. Exhale both nostrils. So soften the hand. Inhale both nostrils. Now exhale right. In right. Once again, out both nostrils. And inhale both. Exhale left. In left. Out both. In both. Out right. In right. Out both. In both. Remember the pattern. Exhale left. In left. Out both. In both. Out right. In right. Out both. In both. Continue on your own at your pace for 1 to 2 more minutes. Maintaining spinal integrity, effortless diaphragmatic breath, and heightened sensitivity through the nostrils and up and down through the space of the spine. softly holding the intention to purify. One more round. Continue until you have exhaled and inhaled once more through the right nostril, and then back to breath flowing through both nostrils, effortlessly and evenly. Releasing the hand when you're ready. Truly effortless breath. Soft awareness ascending and descending between 0 point and Agya Chakra. That 0 point simply being the space beyond the nostrils where you can sense the breath terminating and then originating again. With the next inhale, ascend once again to Agya Chakra, and then remain at Agya Chakra. Sense that indeed, at this point in time, there is nowhere else the mind more greatly longs to be. Continuing to hold soft awareness at Agya Chakra, embracing the quality of inclusivity, purity through integration rather than exclusion or isolation. As thoughts, feelings, sensations arise, acknowledge and welcome them. Drawing them in rather than pushing them out. And sense the power culminating at Agya Chakra, expanding with this sense of inclusivity. Lingering here in this space for just a bit longer. Scan the body for any unnecessary tension. Soften that tension and release. And reinvest the energy of that tension into this gathering sense of presence at Agya Chakra. Continuing to cherish this experience at Agya Chakra, we'll invite in one recitation of the Sri Sukta. If you're familiar, you're welcome to chant aloud. If you're unfamiliar, you're welcome to just listen and invite this sweetness in, washing away any bitterness that might be clinging within the nooks and crannies of the heart and mind. Beginning with the invocation. Dakshinamurtaye tubhyam Vatavriksha nivasine Dhyannahika niratangaya Namo Rudraya Shambhave Om Hiranyavaranam haranim suvarnaratasrajam Chandram hiranmayim lakshmim jatavedo ma'avaha Tama avaha jatavedo lakshmim anupagamanim Yasyam hiranyam vindeyam gamashwan purushan aham Ashvapurvam ratamadyam hastinata prabodhinim Shriyam devi mupahvaye shrirma devi jushutam Kamso smitam hiranya prakaram ardram jvalantim triptam tarpayantim Padme stitam padmavarnam dhami upavaye shriyam Chandram pabahasam yashasa jvalantim shriyam loke deva jushtam udaram Tam padmanim im sharanam prapadye alakshmirme nashyatam tvam vrinomi Adityavarne tapasodidato vanaspatistava vrikshotabilvaha Tasya palani tapasanudantu yantarayascha bahya alakshmihi Upayatu mammatir vasakaha kirtishcham maninasaha Pradurbhutosmi rastrismin kirtim ritim dadatu me Kshutpipasam alam jishtam alakshmim nashyam yaham Abhutim samritin cha sarva nirnuta me grihat Gandhadwaram dharadarsham nityapushtam karishinim Ishwarim sarvabhutanam dhami upavaye shriyam Manasaha kamamakutim vatyaha satyamashimhi Pashunam rupamannasya mayi shri shrayatam yashaha Kardamena prajabhuta mayi sambhava kardama Shriyam vasaya mekule mataram padmamalanim Apahashritantu sniktani chiklita vasame grihe Nityadevi mataram shriyam vasaya mekule Ardram pushkaranim pushtim pingalam padmamadanim Chandram hiranmayim lakshmim jatavedo ma'avaha Ardram yakharanim yashtim suvarnam hemamadanim Suryam hiranmayim lakshmim jatavedo ma'avaha Tama auha jatavedo lakshmi manapagamanim Yasyam hiranyam prabhutam gavota shoshwan Vindeham purushan aham Yaha suchihi prayato bhutva juhuyada cha advaham Shriyaha panchadasharcham cha Shri kamaha satatam japet Om Shantihi 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 Bring awareness back to the breath. Enjoy a few more rounds of Samikarana. Effortless, enjoyable oscillations up and down through the midline of the space of the body. Crown to perineum, perineum to crown. And then with an exhale down and out through the nostrils, and a few oscillations between 0 point and Agya Chakra. Feel free to bring the hands together, pressing the palms together gently but firmly in front of the heart, and perhaps bow the head. Take a moment to recognize, to acknowledge and honor that part of you within that is ever pure and infinitely powerful. Maybe rub the palms of the hands together, coming back into the physical body, generating a sense of presence and warmth between the hands. And then place the palms of the hands wherever you'd like, maybe over the heart or the belly or over the eyes for another breath or two. in whatever way feels right to you. Begin to transition back out, maybe fluttering the eyelids, opening the eyes into the hands, and then moving the hands away from the face. Go ahead and reach for your journal. Let's initially return to the question that we opened with. What is your idea of your definition of success? And include all of the lofty ideas as well as the more mundane. What is your idea of your definition of success? And are you harboring any unfulfilled desires around success? And we all are. So, what are those unfulfilled desires? Money, love, health, achievement, recognition, security, whatever it happens to be. And what thoughts and feelings are associated with these unmet, unfulfilled desires around success? And again, you can include both the lofty and the more sticky thoughts and feelings. Is there a sense of trust that they will be fulfilled? Or perhaps the opposite? Is there any sense of lack, scarcity, frustration? And then here's the most important one for today. How do you feel about those who you perceive as more successful than you currently are? Those who have seemingly fulfilled your unfulfilled desires. So those who have the money that you desire, who have the security, who have the love, the recognition, maybe it seems like they have more than their fair share. How do you feel, as honestly as possible, about those who you perceive as more successful than you are? Not just the lofty feelings and ideas, but the sticky, the dark, the heavy ones too. And without being too leading with this question, is there any anger, bitterness, resentment, animosity? Specifically toward those who you perceive as having what you want? And again, not just the lofty desires, the very human ones too. Safety, security, money, recognition, love. Is there any anger, bitterness, resentment, animosity? If so, and again, I would suggest that for the vast majority of human beings, the answer is yes. If there is some animosity present, what is the impact that that has on the inner environment of your mind? What is the impact that anger, bitterness, resentment, animosity have on the inner environment of your mind? Is it nice? Or does it feel icky, heavy, hot, twisted? Okay. Now, rather than rushing to the antidote, uh-oh, I think I've frozen a bit. Let's see. Okay, you're moving again. I froze for a second, but I'm back. Rather than rushing to the antidote of this contaminant of animosity, I'm going to give us the opportunity to just sit with the contaminant today so that we can become, ideally, increasingly aware of its presence. It's hard to heal things when we don't yet know they exist and when we don't recognize how pervasive they are. So we're just going to sit with the presence of anger, bitterness, resentment, animosity for today. But let's talk about it. Let's humanize it a little bit. So that as we become aware of its presence, we don't slip into a shame spiral. Okay. Does anyone have any unfulfilled desires? Yeah. Would anyone be willing to share your ideas, your definition of success? You can either just unmute yourself or type them into the chat. What is success? What are components of success? How do you measure success? Pamela?
My first sentence was success is when I have a daily meditation practice and I don't skip it. Um, yeah. And when I put my health on um, first, when I prioritize my physical or my health. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's the two most important things for me. Um, when I had to define success, my personal success,
Yeah.
because I fail there sometimes, often.
Yeah. Would you go so far as to say that success would be being healthy? And
Again, again?
yeah, I said, would you go so far as to say that success is being healthy?
No, I
Okay.
think no, because I think I had this idea years ago, but not anymore. Um, it's just the circumstances, but I have an impact on my health. Doesn't mean that I can just choose to,
Mm-hmm.
to choose how is the outcome, but I have an influence on it.
Mm-hmm. Good.
If it's worse or if it's better. So
That's already a pretty evolved point of view, which I'm sure you recognize. And I imagine you've done a lot of work around that. Anyone else? Any ideas or definitions of success, Elena?
I was like constantly dividing my definitions and then also like the unfulfilled desires around it because definitely there's like the worldly part that comes back to, as you mentioned, also very basic needs of needing to feel safe and secure, for example. And this is also, I feel like this is kind of, I was thinking those definitions of success really are like old definitions of success for me. Like really the basics, like having a stable job and income, having a house, maybe something that you really own, having a stable relationship and a family with kids, things like that. Um, and now, like the new definition is more around, yeah, internal stuff, feeling free and fulfilled, mostly. And that, yeah, is what I feel I'm moving towards, but still cannot kind of forget about the old definition completely.
Mm-hmm.
Still haven't, um, yeah, I don't know, let that go completely.
And most likely, Elena, you
I
won't.
won't.
And you probably shouldn't. because it's very difficult to prioritize your spiritual development and evolution when you're living with a lot of instability. So having your basic human needs met is still a very valid and worthwhile pursuit, and will continue to be, because we will be human for the entire time that we're in this body. And we will continue to need nourishment and stability and connection, and to fulfill our human desires and needs, as well as our more lofty, evolved spiritual ones. And the sense of lack and scarcity that we often experience can come from both aspects of success. So it's important to recognize those desires and not try to talk ourselves out of them. If they're there, they're there. And I would suggest that all of us who identify as human have them. And they're not bad. They're not bad.
Yeah, thank God for Tantra.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? I see some notes. Gosha, success today looks like being able to get up at 5 a.m. with no major problems and being present for most of my practice. Absolutely. Early morning starts are huge for me. Yeah, especially with kids. So you're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for other tiny humans and their desires and needs. Yeah, so brava, well done. And Chrissy says, for me today, I feel success as a life of love, loving deeply, experiencing love deeply, being rooted in it firmly and moving from that state. This is where I feel the quiet joy of being completely fulfilled and at ease. And it's more about me being in the state of love, so from the inside out, and how it might color all of my life. Beautiful, Chrissy. And how do we feel about our unfulfilled desires? And perhaps people that we see as more successful than we are. I'll give you a very human example. And I don't feel this often because, I get to meditate a lot. And so I'm able to drop into the parts of my psyche that I'm more proud of. But that doesn't mean the other parts aren't there. And so that's what I want to just kind of drop into the conversation, that while we're practicing, while we're meditating in ideal conditions, we have lofty desires, and we're much more soft and fluid with our feelings around them. But we are still human, and what we are invested in this round of We Rise is recognizing where the impure associations are still lingering, because that's what arises when we're triggered. And if you haven't noticed, we are living in a very triggering environment these days. Notice what shifts when we click out of this gathering of like-minded souls and you tune into the news or social media. What becomes present then? If you have a desire for peace, stability, comfort, ease, and something in the news or social media draws into your awareness that those things are increasingly precarious, what arises? So that's where I'm inviting us to go for these 28 days. What is lingering beneath the surface of our loftiness, of who we are aspiring to be? And continue to aspire and to embrace that aspect of the self, and also tend the parts of the self that are in need of healing and purifying, so that as we increase our power, which I believe we are being called to do, we do so without also empowering our neuroses. So, I think of basic needs like affording healthcare, food security, being able to go to the store and buy food, nourishing food for myself and my family. I think of, being able to live in my home more than 6 months out of the year as successful. And in my less evolved moments, if I see, someone who makes the kind of money that can afford the healthcare prices that are now and continuing to rise in the United States, if I see someone, who doesn't have to think twice about how many groceries they're buying and what the total is going to look like when you go to the cash register. If I see someone who has the money to buy a visa to live in a country like Italy, in my less evolved moments, I hate them. I'm angry. I'm angry at the injustice. And I'm angry at the injustice, but that's again me making my anger more justifiable. Sometimes I just feel anger at the actual person, if I'm being honest. That's human. It's human. That is, for most of us, the source of our animosity. We identify someone outside of ourselves that seems to have what we don't. And then, rather than investing our time and energy and attention into doing what is necessary to get what we want, we instead invest that time and energy and attention into hating the people who have it and blaming them for our lack, for our scarcity. And the mind will go through all different kinds of circus routines to justify it. We'll pull in things like judgment and self-righteousness as well, because these contaminants that we're going to be exploring this month are a tangled web. They influence each other significantly. But let's pull out the thread specifically of animosity this week. Where is it? What triggers it? Who do you feel anger toward? And try to be as honest with yourself as possible without lingering in it or overindulging. Another show of hands, does anyone feel at least a little bit of anger at any point throughout the day on a day-to-day basis? Yeah. What causes it? Where is it coming from? Are there unfulfilled desires that are somehow associated with that anger, bitterness, resentment, animosity? Do you have a sense that you have an enemy Do you have enemies in the world? People who you are physically or ideologically opposed to? People or groups of people?
When I read the news or go to social media, I have many anger and a lot of enemies. And in January, I had this. I only have Facebook, but that's enough.
Oh, yeah.
And I realized that it's not good for me. It's just not good for me. My algorithm is just, war and Epstein files. And so I choose to do a digital detox in January. And I just was looking on Facebook on Sunday for like 15 minutes just to, because of my students and to share some my practices and my classes. And I felt in this month, I felt so much more at ease and less sorrow, less anger, less everything. Um, yeah, I didn't I went back on February. I couldn't because it's just, it's part of, yeah, um, part of life. But I feel the impact on my nervous system. And a few days ago, I think it was last week, my 13 years old daughter, Lani, came to me. She was crying and she said she's afraid of war. And she's 13. That's incredible. And we're living in Switzerland. I can't remember that I was 13 here and I was like having sorrows and anxiety about that. And it's not about me talking about that a lot. It's just the next generation, they also have, they're aware of that. They also have social media. They also have a smartphone. They have internet. Um, Yeah, I lost now how I came to that. About anger. I have a lot of anger. Yeah.
Yeah. There
It's
we
not also I wanted to, yeah, it's not only because of, I think, um my own personal triggers. It just also the injustice I feel global. It's not only a personal thing.
Mm-hmm. It's your humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. These are the kinds of conversations I'd like us to be exploring so that we can not dwell on the problem. That's not the intention, but to be aware of it, to be aware that the world is out there. It's not going away. How do we navigate it? I've been trying to figure out the best way to say this, and Panditi said it in a way that it was like, okay, that resonates. To live in the world without getting lost in it. That was the part, without getting lost in it. To maintain your clarity, to maintain your purity while being present. That is an increasingly tall order and an increasingly imperative one. Would you agree? And it's okay if you don't. So that's what we're here for. Chrissy, I see you. Does that mean you want to say something, or are you just showing us your loveliness?
I'm definitely not showing you my loveliness. My face is so tired. I found it really fascinating actually, because when I was thinking about desires, I was like, the desires I was thinking unfulfilled right now are ones I feel quite peaceful around. And I love what you're saying. When certain conditions are met, like safety or home, it's quite easy to feel that. But when you put the question about where do you notice anger or animosity or bitter or resentment, I was like, I definitely still feel those on a day-to-day basis. And I found that quite fascinating, because then in some ways, like my anger it mobilizes me, if I don't get lost in it, to look at what need is not being met. So like when I was considering that just on a personal level, I was like, oh, I get really bitter or resentful when I don't feel like I have space. You know, if I haven't given myself space and then my partner's asking me something like there's the washing or this to do, I start to get like really like a chunter. And then I lose my connection to feeling peace or love. So I found that as like a really beautiful, it's almost like a backwards way in, even like looking at world, like what's happening in the world. If I let the anger be there, it's okay. But what is it pointing me towards? I found that really like, whoa, that's really enlightening. And it gives me something to work with, because then when I was looking at my unmet need, if it's space, it's like it's layered. It's not even that. It comes down to this capacity that I'm so afraid to ask for help on a personal level, because it will mean that I'm a failure, I'm not lovable. And so there's all these unravelings that it can kind of bring you back to that I think is really powerful. So thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. Another way to help you, all of us, discern how we would define success is what makes you a failure? How do you define failure? And that will give you, again, a backdoor entrance to how you define success. Yeah. Yeah. And globally right now, a lot of our unfulfilled desires are things like peace, justice, equity, stability. And all of that is very internalized as well. It's very personal, but it's also very collective. And so I invite you to explore those as well. And to echo and add upon something that you said, Chrissy, the feeling of anger is pretty pure and potentially purifying in and of itself, the emotion of anger. But notice how quickly the mind assigns it to an experience or an entity. And that's when anger evolves or devolves potentially into animosity. Anger is not a contaminant, but it very quickly shifts because you want to localize it and be able to target your anger at someone or something. And that's when it can begin to shift into animosity. If it informs you, oof, I do not like this thing, and then you continue to just not like that thing and become increasingly embittered about that thing, not helpful. But if you say, ooh, I do not like this thing, what can I do about it? How can I unravel it? How can I address its presence within myself so that I am wholeheartedly part of a solution rather than perpetuating or magnifying the problem? How can I align my thoughts, words, and actions to the solution in some way, shape, or form? That is powerful in a positive way. But that takes a tremendous amount of consciousness and discipline, which is what we are here to further develop. That will also require a tremendous amount of self-honesty. Continue to nurture the lofty meditator within you. Continue to nurture that part of yourself. That part of yourself is going to become increasingly important. And also, established in the wisdom and the compassion of that part of yourself, become increasingly aware of the other parts too, because they will and do have influence on the way that you think, the way that you feel, and the way that you act. So we want to find a way to lovingly heal and integrate the parts of ourselves that are hurting so that we don't allow them to take the wheel and steer under the influence of things like animosity. So for today, just keep your journal open, figuratively or literally, and jot down the things that bring up those feelings of bitterness, anger, resentment, rage, animosity. Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts before I let you go?
Yes.
After you,
Go ahead,
go.
Helen, and then Pamela.
I found it really fascinating to notice the difference between my state of mind just after having done the meditations and then thinking about who I have animosity towards and what that does. And it really felt like a veil of darkness just coming over my mind. And I was like, whoa. It just so powerfully showed like how our mind shapes our experience.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. That's such a good and healthy recognition. And that will give you, I think, that much more motivation to engage in this kind of work so that we can find a way to live in the world and not get lost in it, to maintain our light in the presence of such darkness. Yeah, I think that's the calling, the calling of our times. And we have been preparing for it for a long time. Each of us individually and collectively, we have been preparing to step into this moment and to maintain our light. We can do it. We must do it. We will do it. It's easier together. Pamela, go ahead, love.
You can stop the recording if you. I just have a question.